So basically, at its like easiest definition, a comic is a story that's told through sequential art. Now, it's not a new idea because I'll show you in a bit, but we've been doing sequential art for a very long time. But the difference between somebody who does like a picture book, in a picture book you might have a picture of the scene and then you might have a different picture of the scene and it just changes as you go through the book. But in a comic, you know, you have one person who's a very talented artist and maybe they can do the cover art, but to be able to take that guy and like create 500 different poses is really hard. So you know, if he's going to be walking, you have to be able to like claymation him, you know what I mean? So sequential art is very hard. How many of you are artists as well as, I knew you were going to raise your hand, you looked artistic. So you two are just writers, correct? You don't do the art as well? Okay, wow, I'm so impressed. I can't draw a stick figure, so I don't. Okay, cool. So sequential art is what sets comics apart from like a picture book or something else. And you really have to learn how to do that process of the sequential, of showing not just the movement and the animation, if you will, but also like you have to know, what do I show? Like, how much do I show? I can't possibly show every single frame. You know, like if you think of a movie, if you were to actually, you know, do every single frame of a movie, like that'd be a 700-page comic book, you know, so we can't do that. So we have to figure out what's good, what's not good, what stays, what doesn't stay. How do I show the sequential art and affect the pacing and things like that? So like I said, we are not new to comic book sequential art. This is a cave painting. I know it's kind of hard to see, but like, you know, you've got these people and they're kind of going out together, and then they've got like weapons and things, and then this guy has like his arrow, and maybe that's an ostrich. I think that might be like a prehistoric giraffe, I'm thinking, I don't know. Maybe a llama, I don't know. But they're kind of like showing that we left home to go on this quest to kill these animals, and that's sequential art because you're moving, right? This is a moving picture. And so here's a medieval tapestry, similar. You've got the horses, like it's supposed to be the illusion of movement. You know, they're heading toward battle and they're clashing, and so this is sequential art. It's supposed to give you the feel that there is motion occurring on a static page, and that's really what makes a comic and why it is exciting and difficult at the same time. So if you are the writer, because it is a collaborative process, unless you're doing both, then you're super talented. If you're the writer, then you're going to create the story, generally speaking. Sometimes the artist creates the story. One thing that Marvel kind of introduced was the concept of the writer giving just a very loose story idea, and then the artist expanding that idea into the actual comic, and then the writer coming in and sort of filling in the dialogue and the story as needed. But it is still a collaborative process. So when I wrote my comic, I created the script, and then I handed that over to my artist. And his name is Jeff Kulisek, but his comic name is Cool as Heck with a K, one word, because his last name's Kulisek, and he's from Jersey, and he's a comic book artist, so like, yes, it's the coolest name ever. So he took my script, and then he wrote what I created in words. He changed it into pictures, into images, into art, and showed my story visually. I did include the panels when I submitted my ideas to him, and we'll go over panels in a minute, but just to give him like kind of a pacing of what I thought the story should look like. But as the artist, he has the final say, so he's gonna come in and come over top of my ideas and say, well, actually, it should be like this. So the artist's job is to interpret that story. Even if it's your own story, it's still an interpretation because you're changing mediums. And it's gonna retell the story. And like I said, he adjusted my story panels. was also he did the lettering, he did the cover, like he did a lot of things. Sometimes when you have a comic, you'll have someone who does the cover, someone who maybe does like the backgrounds, someone who does the main characters, a colorist, someone who does the letters, the balloons. It's like crazy how many people are involved in a book that, you know, you just kind of take for granted in a sense, as far as how much art and craft and time and experience went into it. It's such a fast rate. It's kind of like Thanksgiving. Like you spend all that time prepping, right? And then people sit down like 15 minutes, the carcass is on the table. So that's kind of how this is. Just not as tasty. So when you're building a script, the way a comic is presented is obviously it's pages because it is a book. But on those pages you have the panels, and the panels, what's interesting about them is they're the story, like it's where the story is told, but because you're dealing with pages that are bigger than the panel, you can kind of expressively use outside the panels or the panels themselves. So if you wanted to show a character that feels like, you know, their life is kind of like smushing them, right? They're just sort of like underneath their life and they're just trying to get out of it, and they have this really big moment, then you can show them like stepping out of their panel, you know, or holding the top of their panel and trying to escape, because that kind of shows you their internal, you know, so you can use the whole space, which is really cool. When I write a book, I cannot just start like writing things in the margin unless I'm writing Diary of a Wimpy Kid. But if I'm writing just a normal book, I can't just go like outside the lines and the pages and go into the gutters and start just using them because they're there, you know. But in a comic, you can. The panels are part of the storytelling. You also have page turns because it is a book. And like when you write a novel, you have cliffhangers at the end to force the reader to move on to the next chapter. In a comic book, those page turns happen at the bottom of the odd numbered pages. Because if you have a book and you have page 1 here and you turn the page and you have page 2 and page 3 has to make you want to turn the page. So you have to think about that when you're telling your story, when you're doing your script and you're saying, here's page 1, here's page 2, what's happening at the bottom of that odd numbered page that is going to cause your reader to get to that point and be like, oh my gosh, I was like, I'm so hungry. I was totally going to go get a Hot Pocket, but now I got to turn the page. And then they don't get their Hot Pocket, right? Like there's something that has to happen to keep them in your book because they've got TikTok, YouTube, going with their friends, Netflix, like there's so many distractions, right? So we have to think about that when we're doing our page turns with the even and odds, that odd page, and you can remember it, that odd lady was talking about page turns, eating Hot Pockets. So Hot Pocket, odd lady, okay? Got the connection? Awesome. So the other thing about building a script is that you're gonna have a full page because sometimes the story, it necessitates like the full page for a panel. In my comic, there was a scene where mine is about the angel of vengeance, and he reads in the Bible that vengeance is mine, says the Lord, and he takes it literally. So he thinks if he can do enough good deeds, he can work his way back into his old position in heaven. So I wanted to show like the battle of the angels and the falling of the angels in like a flashback. So I told my illustrator, like, oh, we're just gonna show like tens of thousands of angels falling from heaven. And he was like, that's like asking me to draw every piece of sand on a beach. Like, do you have any idea how hard that is? And I'm like, no, it's just words. Like to me, I don't, no correlation. But so what he did was he used a whole panel or a whole page as a panel to show that. And he did it in a very clever way because he went outside the panel and he built like almost like a mosaic picture frame effect. And it was like a I can't remember what they're called, but in art when it's kind of like bumpy, like, is it a fresco? Is that? I'm trying to go back to like 1993 art history at UCF, I don't remember. Anyway, but it was really neat because he just had like all these like angel faces in bronze around the edges of outside the panel. So, you can think about that full page having this really impactful moment of your story. And likewise, you can do a full spread where instead of reading from, we're going side by side down, and then we go up and then side by side down, right? Like how we normally read. In a full spread, you're going to go all the way across the whole book and then back to the beginning, almost like a typewriter. Remember those things? Yeah. So you go all the way across and then zoop. So you're the typewriter. You're going all the way across and zoop, popping it back. And this little mango dude is totally public domain IP if anyone wants to use him and tell him. If you would like to tell Mango Dude's story, you can do that. He's a good student because he has a book. Here's an example of like a page turn, right? So it's at the bottom here that we're gonna turn the page, and like we've got this like group of monsters, and they're over this girl's bed, and I don't know, but she seems kind of creepy too, so I don't know, maybe she just didn't brush her teeth or something, but I think they're trying to scare her, and they're like, how dare you, ... right? So like the artist and the writer together are trying to get you to be like, how dare you what? Or, oh my gosh, this girl, what's happening? And you want to turn that page, right? And unfortunately, I am a cruel person because I didn't go on the internet and find the next page. I just have this one. So, okay, so I'm going to use some of my characters and things just to illustrate, but when you're first creating your story, like your character is really important. It doesn't have to be a supernatural demon cowboy like me. It can be a kid going to school. It can be a mystery. It can be a romantic comedy. Like you can do any genre you want. You just want to make sure that your character is visually interesting. One of the things about my character that I knew was his eyes had to be purple. Oh, we don't know why, but I just knew his eyes had to be purple. That was a absolute. But that was really the only thing I told the illustrator, and he created everything else on his own. I like that he gave him a cross around his neck because he is like a cowboy demon, and I thought that was just a kind of cool inward expression using an outward appearance. But so just when you're going through your character, just thinking about what makes them different, like what can I show that will set them apart from other similar characters? If it's a kid going to school, like what can I give them? Do they wear headphones, or do they, I don't know, do they wear collared shirts and everybody else wears tank tops? I don't know. Also with your character, you want to give them unique dialogue. And if you think about the dialogue, the balloons, my illustrator said, think of it like a tweet, like old school tweet. You have 140 characters max to put into that little balloon. So that's really hard. That's not a lot of story to tell in a tiny balloon. So when you're working through your script, feel free to put everything on the page, but when you're going back and editing and you're gonna be putting that into your balloon, like thinking about it as a tweet, how can you take that language and that dialogue and condense it? What can you take out of the words and show in the pictures, right? Because maybe you don't have to say like, why are your eyes purple, right? Like you can just have him point and then the next shot is a close-up of the eyes. You know, how can you show, like if you can't show it, then you need words, if you think of it that way. When you write a picture book, that's how picture books are. If you can show that it was a sunny afternoon and the animals were playing a game of kickball in the valley, if you can show all of that, then you don't need to also write what I just said. You can write something different. You can write, you know, no one knew at the start of today that it was going to be a crazy day. Because then you're using the whole space to really tell your story properly, because you're not just like taking away something. You use the picture to tell one thing, you use the dialogue to tell something different. And again, believable or unbelievable, but always memorable. And we're gonna discover who they are through a combination of the art, the dialogue, the voiceovers, which we'll get to later, and then how other people in the story perceive them. The fun thing about comics are the action. It is sequential art, so you have to be able, how do I take something that's flat and static and show it moving? So we talked about page turns, crazy hot pocket page, right? Odd, got it. But in a comic, you can show somebody moving with like little swirls behind them to show that they're running really fast, right? You can have arrows. You can use like magic-y looking, I don't know, little lines and things to show movement. All of those things are up to you on how you want to show that sequential art. And you can also control the pacing of the story with that, because if I was walking into a room, right, in one panel, and close your eyes. Okay, open your eyes. And now you see me here leaving the room, like, you're probably going to assume that I just rushed through the room, right? But if you see me walking into the room, okay, close your eyes. Okay, now open them. And now you see me like this, you're gonna think I'm strolling through the room, or maybe I'm like afraid of someone behind me, I don't know. If you show someone the first panel, they're at the edge of the room, the second panel in the middle, the third panel, they're at the end, they just walked, right? So you can think about how you want to show the pacing of the story by how much attention. You can show 10 steps across the room, right? And have thoughts going through every single step. It's up to you how you show that action. But you just have to remember that it's just from one shot to the next. You can't show every single panel. It took me 10 steps to get across the room, that's 10 panels. And then it took me 4 steps to lift my arm up, and that's 4 panels. Like, you can't do everything. And then also remember that the story is told between the panels, because if in panel 1 I'm here opening the door, and then in panel 2 I'm across the room leaving, you're not reading the comic going, whoa, she can morph through time and space. You're going, she walked across the room. Like, you're filling in that story, right? I didn't tell you. I didn't say she walked across the room at a rapid pace, right? I just have 2 panels. I'm here, I'm there. You fill in the blanks. So remember that the audience, the reader, they're gonna tell the story between the panels. So you need to show them as little as you need to show them for them to get it. If you go too far, then they're gonna miss something. If you go too close, they're gonna feel like it's redundant. And so you have to find that balance. And then the whole story and the action, everything happens in boxes, which is just fun. Okay, so here's I'm just showing you, like, this is how a page turn is. So it's always gonna be even on left, odd on the right. And this is how you read a comic unless it's a full spread. You go, you follow the pictures, and the higher the lower, the words, the higher the lower, right? It's just like reading, but you're just kind of moving around the whole page. But in a full spread, you would go all the way across and come back like a typewriter. Here's just a random example of a bunch of like action images that you can use. So just to express that, like, you can use anything you want as long as it's consistent in your comic to express something. If you're gonna express, running with the bouncy lines, then just make sure you're pretty consistent with that, because your reader, they're gonna make assumptions and expectations based off of what you present, and they're gonna kind of follow that through your work. And it also might be kind of like your signature thing, like, oh, I love this artist. She always uses, musical notes when her characters are moving, and I always know that they're listening to music, and I just love that. Like, you can kind of create your own signature, like a branding thing with the action too. So when you're talking about dialogue, the different ways to get dialogue across in a comic is you can have it direct, where it's in the balloon and one person speaks and they're talking. You can also do off-panel, like when you're watching a movie and you're on this character's face and they're just nodding, but the person off screen is the one talking. So if you're gonna do an off-panel speaker, then you would just have the words be here, and then the balloon just kind of goes off, the edge of the balloon just goes off the page. And then we are smart enough to know what that means as readers. You can also do voiceover or like the narrator, and that usually will be like in a rectangle or a box, no dialogue, quotations, and it's just a telling statement, once upon a time in a land far, far away. You can also do it in bubbles, and then bubbles usually are like a flashback or a thought, so that's the difference between the balloon and the bubble. So here's just like just an example of how you'd read the dialogue within the balloons. Because it's in the balloon, you don't necessarily have to put the quotation marks, because we are trained comic readers to know that that's what a balloon means. The bubble here is the thought, it's just There's a bunch of different ways. I just wanted you guys to see that it's your comic. You can make it however you want. Just be consistent. You can tell. I mean, first of all, it's Professor X, so obviously he's just thinking it. But you can see that there's bubbles, so you know it's a thought. And then at the top, they have it in a different color. There's no quotes, so that's the narrator or the voiceover, like when you're watching a movie and there's just that voiceover moment. And then over here, there's just a couple of different ways to show that like voiceover narrator moment. And then the differentiator is the dialogue. The quotation marks let us know that we're back to a conversation. If you're writing a like true comic, your structure is a 24 to 32 page book. It's very similar to picture books. That includes all the like front matter, back matter, all of those things. Because if you think it's a big spread and then they're like folding the pages and cutting things and moving it all together, so it always goes in like increments of 4 because that's how the sheets print out. Actual structure of the comic story, you can have a single issue, and that's just the one. You can have as many of those as you want in that series. You can go on forever. Mine is 3-issue limited series. It's like if you were to watch this TV show, the first pilot episode, that's what the comic is. It's just 3 issues of the pilot episode. That would be considered a limited series because I don't have any more like planned. If we actually go into development and sell the show or the movie, you bet I'll write more comics, but not until then. You can also have spin-offs or one-shots. A one-shot might just be like one story that is not connected to anything else. You just have this one story you want to tell. Whereas a spin-off could be one story or a whole bunch, and it's within that story universe, but it's kind of like a side story. So you might think of like DreamWorks had Shrek, and then they did the spin-off of Puss in Boots. So that's kind of how a spin-off would work. And then your graphic novel is where you take all of those issues and you bind them all into a trade paperback format, like anything you would pick up at the library. And you read the whole story at once. Whereas an issue, a comic book issue, will come out once a week. And then in the end, like once they get through that whole series, they might choose to put all those issues together into a hardcover book, and that's called a trade paperback. So the difference is just the release. One releases as a whole story, one releases one issue at a time in a bound book or as a single issue. So it's kind of like if you buy a book, if you were to get one chapter at a time of the book, then that's an issue. And if at the end you get the whole book, that's your trade paperback. But when you buy the actual book by itself, you've never read anything, that's your graphic novel. So it's chapters versus book. And I'm just reminding you that stories told between the panels because it's really crazy how that works. Here is how the script that I wrote, this is how I presented it to the illustrator. So you can see there's not a lot of, I know you can't read the words, but there's not a lot of detail. Like I literally say, panel 1, inside a church, the priest heads toward a confessional. That's all I gave him. I didn't say the age of the priest, the color of the priest's skin, what he looked like, what kind of a priest he was, if he's Catholic, if he's Presbyterian, I don't know. I think there's priests in more than just Catholicism, but anyway, I didn't give him any detail. I didn't say what the church looked like, a 2-story, old, new, nothing. I just said that because he's the artist, right? I am just providing the story basics. I also told him for I originally had this for panel 2, a flickering candle blowing out. And he was like, Jamie, a flickering candle blowing, we have a lit candle that to flicker has to move twice, and then to blow out so that's at least 4 panels. And I'm like, oh, okay, I see that. Sequential art, gotcha. So he turned it into 8 panels, which is really cool, so it flickers. And then my first dialogue line is down here, where he says, forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. So this is page 1, this is page 2. I did not give him much direction except for a couple of things of where we're at, who's talking, and then lots of narration, lots of narrator boxes, and also the purple eyes. I told you that was important. We don't know why, but it was important, so we went with that. And this is what he drew for page 1. You see the flickering candle, like it's pretty neat. Like I got it. Once I saw it, I'm like, oh, okay, gotcha. Can't flicker without 4 panels. And then the colorist came in and she did her thing, and it just changed the whole story. Also, like in the narration, I said the priest takes a swig from his flask, right? So he's like all the time messaging me, like, so what does a demon sound like? And I'm like, he's like, you need to type that out for me. And I'm like, screech, you know, like, I don't know. So I'm having to become the onomatopoeia queen. And so here's another way where you can get rid of some words by showing, right? So I had the priest opens his flask and takes a drink, which he turns into clatch, because that's the sound that the flask made, right? So you can find ways in your script, like write your whole script, but just remember it's visual. So you can find places in the script where you can remove a lot of the dialogue, a lot of the narration, a lot of the writing. If you can't show it in a picture, then you can write words. And if you can write words, what's the fewest amount of words you can write? Because it's a comic. It's an artistic expression. So here's the second page. And I loved this because it just showed the differentiation between him being like, oh my gosh, I think I know who you are, and you know, my character. But it was just fun. Like, it was really fun. This was the first time I've ever written anything that I actually saw with my eyes, because everything else had just been in my imagination. So it was very cool to see how my words translated to pictures and how he actually saw what I saw. Like, my translation was received the right way because we saw the same thing. So I only had him change like maybe 2 or 3 things in all 3 issues, which was really neat. So how do you start if you're not sure? You can do an outline. You can just go through the whole story and just say, I kind of want to write a story about this. I preferred the panel pages way, like I showed you for my script, because that just helps me to see the pacing of the story. If I know I have 26 to 32 pages to work with, then I should be here by the end of Act 1. I should be here at the midpoint. You can also write a short story if you're not quite sure like how the formatting is supposed to look for the panels and whatnot. Sometimes it's hard to like create in the medium and also be creative. So maybe writing a short story first so you can get the whole story down on paper, and then pulling those pieces away to create your comic. Or a screenplay if you're into that. I don't know if any of you guys have written scripts before. But Stan Lee, that's why I did it, because Stan Lee was like, it's so similar. A screenplay and a comic book script are so similar. So that was helpful for me because I could almost see everything before it went to the artist. If you are more artistic than wordy, you can do a storyboard, which is very similar to a comic, but you're obviously spending a lot less time on the art because it's just supposed to be kind of like a quick, like this is kind of a quick idea of what I'm thinking, and you don't have to do every single panel. Like for the flickering light, you could just do one panel, you know, because you're just gonna say the light's gonna move. Or you can do character sketches. This is another story idea I have for like a Star Wars kind of fantasy sci-fi, and this is the main character, so I had a different artist just kind of sketch me some characters. You know, just I think sometimes it helps to see your story to be able to write it. So maybe you have somebody help you figure out your characters before you start writing the actual comic, and that artist can either be your artist or they can just inspire you or do the cover. This is a great book if you have any questions about comics. I'm sure the library carries it. If not, they definitely should. What I loved about this book is it goes through the history of comics and how to write a comic, but that's the author, Scott. He puts himself in, the whole thing is written as a comic. It's like an education book, but it's written as a graphic novel. And he's the main character, and he's like showing you, this is how this looks, and this is how if you go outside panel, this is how this looks. And you know, it's really cool. It was a wonderful, wonderful book. Mine you can grab online. It's just super fun, and it's just a blank comic. So you literally like can go right into it and draw and write words and, you know, create your own comic. If it's not something you plan on selling, you know, you can just mess around. You can also go online and just print pages. You don't have to get a book like mine. So there's a lot of resources online for that. I'm also listening to a very interesting book right now. I don't know what it is. I'd have to look when we're done with this, but it's like a lecture on just superheroes and Marvel versus DC and the whole history of how all of those came to be, and it's been very fascinating. If you need them, one thing that artists get to do that writers don't is, like, when you take your first writing or art class, like, they might give you a backlit box, and then you can put something there, and then you can trace it. And then when you pull that traced paper away, you're like, I am the greatest artist ever, right? Because you're looking at, your hand did it, you know what I mean? Like, you did the work, but you didn't, like, it wasn't your art, which is perfectly fine. You're learning how to do art. So I always encourage novelists to take, like, the first chapter of Harry Potter and handwrite it or type it, just to show yourself that you are capable of writing the exact same words as Rowling. And it's the same with this. So maybe you're not ready to write your own comic, or you don't have all the ideas together, but you can take a comic that you love and you can recreate it identically. You can take the pictures and just draw them yourself, the words, copy them down, just to show yourself that you're capable, because to me, that just makes me feel better, that, like, wow, I can do this. Like, I need to work on some things, but I can do this, I'm capable. And then, like, the next layer would be, like, to take a short story that you've written, or maybe one that you love, or a TV show that you like, or a movie that you like, and just looking at it and going, well, if I were to take this story, how would I break it down into panels? Like, where would I have page turns? Where would I put where would the full spread be? Where would I have any one page, just one panels? And just see what you come up with. You can also take that same story or a different story and just do the art. Like, I'm not gonna write the script or the panel, like, breakdown. I'm just gonna go through and do what I think the art should look like for this story. And you can also just bring it down to just the characters. Like, if you have a character in your mind and you're not quite sure what you want to do with the story, maybe do some sketching of the characters. And you might, the reason you do that is because you might be drawing this character and then, like, they have a ring on their finger that you didn't know they owned. And now you're like, what is that ring from? And that gives you a whole backstory of, oh, their grandmother gave them this ring and blah, blah, blah. And it might take you into a new direction. So I think sometimes if we just get out of the story and we just focus on, like, elements within the book, it will cause our imagination to see things that we miss. This is me, hi. If you want to take a picture of my info, my email, my phone number, if you have any questions, you can text me as long as it's reasonable. You can email me at any unreasonable hour, and I'm happy to answer questions. You can also jump on my newsletter. If you go to my website, I do share, like, if I have new books coming out, or movies, or comics, anything like that, and courses. But yeah, that's my my first comic, and my experience has been really fun. Once the producer got the comic in his hand, he called me right away and said, I want to make this. Like, this is my next thing. So that was really neat, and I guess I have like 1,000 at my house. So one day when we go to the premiere party, I'll be able to give everybody a comic. So that'd be kind of cool. That's it for me. Thank you.